Hey y'all, my name is Kayla and welcome to my cozy catty corner of the internet. Today I was sitting here hanging out with the girls, watching some YouTube videos. I actually recently discovered this creator called Catnip, and that's actually the name of her brand. She makes the cutest like kawaii desk stuff. She has other things, but predominantly it's like stationery, notepads, mugs. She has like these gaming mats, mouse pads, a whole bunch. And it's not like my personal taste. I think it's super cute. It's just stuff that I would never buy for myself. However, it screams my niece. So we may be stocking up for Christmas time. But anyways, I was spending my morning doing that. I was like, this is just so cozy right here. So I figured, you know what, let's just give it another go. If you didn't see the name of today's video, we are going to be doing my September and October wrap-up video. And there are a lot of books to talk about, but a lot of these books have like their own individual video. I'm not gonna talk in depth about a lot of these books. I'll just be like, check out the playlist, okay? They all have their own little Booktober playlist and video, because for the month of October, what I was trying to do was presenting to y'all 31 books in 31 days. I only made it to day 8, but technically there were 9 books. So the main reason we didn't get to at least day, we'll say 15, is because I had enough videos in the can to make it to day 15, but I just got exhausted of editing and also still trying to read. I think in total I read 20 books? I don't know. We'll figure out by the end of this video. Also, I found this cutie gingerbread man pillow at TJ Maxx yesterday, and I'm obsessed with him. He's like a soft boucle material. I start to sprinkle Christmas throughout my home at the beginning of November. I used to wait till Thanksgiving, but last year my partner was just like, I'm surprised the place isn't decorated yet. I'm like, I mean, if you want me to, I can. I will never say no to decorating for Christmas. With all of that noted, let's just get into things. Typically, I'd give a disclaimer about my rating structure, but to be honest, I'm kind of tired of rating books. I don't know why. I feel like a lot of the books I've been reading lately, or even just the books I've read in the past year, I'm like, I feel like the longer I sit with the story, the more my like rating, their star rating would change, but I feel like the review would stay the same. Does that make sense to anyone else? I'll still give star ratings here and there, but just know they change with the wind. As always, we are gonna start with our DNFs. So we have Love in the Time of Serial Killers. The main reason I DNF this book is because it is first person point of view, and I found our main character to be absolutely insufferable. Like, the one saving grace about her is she's self-aware that she's hypercritical of situations, but she still continues on being a total douche canoe. So yeah, I couldn't stand her, so that's why I DNF'd this book. Next book I DNF'd, and the last book I DNF'd, surprisingly, actually, I'm not gonna lie, considering how many books I read, the fact that I only DNF'd 2 is kind of shocking, because if you watch my channel long enough, you know I DNF books like it's going out of style. I do not care. If I'm not interested in a book, if I'm not enjoying a book, I will put it down and never pick it up again. But the second one is The Girl in Red by Christina Henry. And the main reason I DNF'd this book is it was just boring. I think I made it to maybe 15-20% of the way in, and I was just bored out of my mind. It's a post-apocalyptic world. It's apparently a little Red Riding Hood retelling. You would think it's an entertaining book, but it's not. So personally, I'm setting this one down, and I don't think I'll ever be picking it up again. Okay, next we are heading into books that I read and have their own dedicated videos. To start, we have Cinderella is Dead by Kaylin Bayron. This actually was not a part of Booktober. This was a book that I read for my Can You Judge a Book by Its Cover series, so you can go ahead and check out that video right up there. And this book, I believe I gave 4 stars. It was just a good time. It's pretty much about this realm, this world where patriarchy is on crack and pretty much women have zero rights. They have zero autonomy to themselves. At any second, they can get sent off to jail. I forget what it's called. There's like an actual term for it, but they can just like get sent off shoo by like any man in the kingdom. Any man. It could be your neighbor. It could be some Joe Schmo that you never knew, you interacted with one time. It's absurd. But it does have a happy ending, and it was just a good time. And also, this cover is absolutely gorgeous and stunning, so how could I not? Okay, next, which is a double feature, we have the Pumpkin Spice Cafe and the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore. Here are the things that I will note. Pumpkin Spice Cafe, probably like 10% spice. Cinnamon Bun Bookstore, probably like 80% spice. So it was so shocking to go from this book where it's just kind of like, oh, cute little romance, cute little mystery elements, fun, easy, quick read. And then you get to it and you're like, oh, here's some spicy moments. That makes sense. And then you go into Cinnamon Bun Bookstore and it's like, cute, what? Just like boinking the entire book. So that is my one complaint. A lot of people's complaint about the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore is that they all thought it was going to be autumn. It is not. It is set during summer. It's about this summertime adventure where our main female lead is just trying to, like, you know, do all the things that she hasn't done in her 20s because she's about to turn 30. And she has lived a very grandma-esque life, and now she just wants to be wild and free for the summer. So that's Cinnamon Bun Bookstore. Pumpkin Spice Cafe is about a new girl in town who meets this jaded farmer dude. But again, it was a shell shock to go from like cute, little bit of spice, a little bit of seasoning to, oh my God, put the salt away, Laurie Gilmore. Next, we have The Mystery Writer, and I'm not gonna lie, y'all, I was actually really excited about this book because I had read The Woman in the Library by Solari Gentile, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun, good time. This one, though, I felt like it was everything in the kitchen sink. And there was one element specifically, there was like this conspiracy theory chat group that was heavily highlighted in the first half of the book and then just didn't really appear in the second half of the book. And by the way, the second half of the book, I was so bored out of my brains, which is wild because if you think about what actually happened in the second half of the book, you'd think it would be entertaining. But I was just kind of bored. And then at the very end of the book, the conspiracy theory chat group makes a reappearance. And it was just like jarring for them to be gone for pretty much the second half of the book and just then reappear. I mean, it's all right book. I would say 3 stars probably. Next, we have Everything the Darkness Eats by Eric LaRocca. And I would say if you are interested in reading this book at any capacity to please look up the trigger warnings. I would say this deals with the most darkest, sinister parts of human brutality. This was a tough book. There were some sections in this book that were just so hard to get through, but I will note there is a silver lining and a light at the end of the tunnel because it actually has a very sweet ending. But to get to that very sweet ending, you have to deal with horrible atrocities. So protect your peace, protect your mental health, and just go into this book arming yourself with those trigger warnings and just knowing that it gets very, very grim. This is a book that I will not give a rating to. I feel like there's just some books out there that it's not like it's a bad book. It so feels weird to say I enjoyed this book, but I enjoyed this book. I don't know. There's some books that it feels wrong to give a star rating to. Next, we have Summer Camp for Slasher Victims. This was such a fun read. It's like one of those fun popcorn reads. I had such a good time. I would say it's a good summer/autumn read. So if you're still in the autumn fall vibes, I feel like it would be a good read for you currently. I wouldn't say it's really a winter read, in my personal opinion. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was such a good time. It is independently published, so just keep that in mind. There are some weird typos and a few grammatical errors, but all things considered, I had a great time with it. 4 stars. Again, it's in the Booktober playlist if you want to check it out. This next book. I hated this book. Quite literally hated this book. And you think, if I hated this book so much, I would give it a 1 star. I did not. I did give it a 2 star. And the reason I gave it a 2 star is because I'm like, well, it obviously is triggering some sort of visceral emotion from me. And also there are some elements in this book that I did enjoy, but I hated this book. We have a Tempest of Tea, and I'm not gonna lie, I cannot remember if this has a dedicated video or not. I think it does. My biggest comparison for this book is that it felt very much like Six of Crows. I actually really enjoyed it. I gave this book 4 stars. I had a great time. I thought the characters were great. I thought the writing had some really key points and really nice highlights to it, but it was very, I'm gonna say it's basic writing in the sense that it's easy to read, but there were so many just like flourishes that I so enjoyed. I know a lot of people didn't like this book because the premise of the book is that our main character, she owns a tea house that caters to the blood drinking creatures of the night. I think a lot of people went into this book thinking it was going to heavily deal with this tea house and catering to the nightlife of these blood drinkers, but it doesn't deal with that really at all. Why, compared to Six of Crows, it is about building a team for a heist. Pretty much, at the end of the day, that's what it's about. So I'm actually intrigued how I would have felt about this book if I hadn't read Six of Crows earlier this year, or at all, to be frank, because the entire time I was like, this feels like Six of Crows. This feels like Six of Crows. I had a really great time though. I really enjoyed it. Next, we have They Drown Our Daughters by Katrina Monroe. And this is a book that has multiple elements that typically I do not like. It has alternating timelines, alternating point of views, and paranormal elements in it. I will note though, the paranormal elements I actually really enjoyed. I would say up until like the last 15-20%, then things got a little too corporeal for me. And if you know, my biggest complaint with like paranormal activities in books is sometimes I feel like the paranormal elements are too human-like. Like, I like my ghosties to be more just like ethereal, like I can't reach my hand out and touch them kind of paranormal. And this book, I felt like had those like just weird, sinister nuances to the ghost element, but then at the end it seemed like almost too real, and I didn't quite like that. Another thing I did not like about this book is the fact that our 2 main characters are a mother-daughter duo, and their names are far too similar. I kept getting them confused so often. And their names are Meredith and Judith. Like, please do not do that. Can we have them have very different names? And the wild thing is, like, every other character in this book had very different names. Like, nobody else had similar names except for Meredith and Judith. And I'm like, these are literally our 2 main characters that we spend a majority of the time with. And we have them be so similar. That's like that's my biggest complaint, honestly, about the book. Other than that, I had a great time. It is about this family of women, and all the women in the timeline are cursed. And we figure out how they got cursed and how to solve the curse. A book that has a dedicated video is The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monica Kim. I'm not gonna lie, I would say from like the 30% mark to the 75% mark, I was kind of meh. Like, it was a 3-star book for me. I was just kind of like, not really vibing with it. But the ending, y'all, oh my God. When things start ramping up, they start ramping up and going into overdrive. And I was just like, what the is going? It was wild. It was a wild time. It is about this young adult. Her name is Ji-won, and her father, Oppa, just recently left his wife and his children for another woman. And we just deal with this family dealing with this recent and abrupt change in their lives. And then a new recent and abrupt change in their life is that Oma, who's the mother, starts dating this white guy named George. And he has blue eyes. And let's just say eyes are a key component to this book. And it gets a little graphic. Anyways, on to the next book. We have The Invocations by Crystal Sutherland. This is a book about 3 young women. One is a girl who recently lost her sister and is trying to bring her sister back from the dead. Another is a girl who played with the devil and is now cursed. And the third is a witch who is going to help them all. This was a wild adventure. I had such a good time. A lot of people said there was a lot of grotesque elements to this book. Personally, I don't know. Did I skim over them or am I just desensitized? Because I didn't find really anything in this book to be too grotesque. I mean, I could see how there were some odd elements to the book, but I had such a great time with this book. It was so much fun. 4 stars. Ooh, next we have a book that is perfect for this time of year. It starts around Thanksgiving, has Krampus and Christmas all wrapped in to a little family mystery. And this book is called The Family Game. Oh my God, it is about our main character who is marrying into this very wealthy American family. Her fiance has been estranged from his family for quite some time because a lot of his siblings kind of like mooch off the dad, and he's kind of always been very adamant on like making a life of his own. This book takes some wild twists and turns. And it was such a good, fun mystery thriller. And oh my God, I just had so much fun. I had so much fun with this book, but it is perfect. Literally, so I might have to reread it to be honest with you because it is perfect for this time of year. Next, we have The Broken Girls by Simone St. James, and y'all, it finally happened. I have found a book by Simone St. James that I gave 4 stars. If you don't know, I have read The Book of Cold Cases by her, and that one got 3 stars from me, mostly because I really enjoyed the first half, but then the second half had paranormal ghost elements, which I could not stand. And then I also read Murder Road, which the main character was just so insufferable. Honestly, Murder Road would have been a good book if the main character wasn't so insufferable. You can see my complete breakdown and hatred of Murder Road in this video right up here. I did read it for Can You Judge a Book by Its Cover? But The Broken Girls, 4 stars. I had such a good time. I will note, it does do timeline shifts or like time hops. So we're in present day 1 second and we're in the 1950s the next second. But it is essentially about a young girl who was found dead at this boarding school. The girl did not attend the boarding school. It was just a rundown, shut down boarding school that her body was found at. So that's present timeline. And our main character is the sister of the girl who was found dead. Now, a main character is pretty much on the hunt to try and figure out what actually ended up happening to her sister, because the man who went to jail for her sister's death was her sister's boyfriend, and no one really believed that it was him. He was just kind of like put to jail. So she's spending the entire time trying to figure out what actually happened to her sister. Now our 1950s timeline is about 6 girls who went to this boarding school while it was still up and running. And man, oh man, that storyline was wild. And then ultimately finding how these 2 storylines converge together. Such a good time. I had such a good time with Miss Simone St. James and The Broken Girls. I enjoyed it. And a part of me is curious if I enjoyed it so much because I disliked the first 2 books from her, or if this is just a good book. The world may never know. Now, y'all, I may have picked up this book solely for the artwork of the cover. I just love it so much. I found it at the library. I was like, oh my God, this is gonna be the cheesiest book ever. But I love this cover. And that is The Gargoyle's Captive by Katie Roberts. And if you know who Katie Roberts is, she writes nothing but the smuttiest of smut. So this book is like XXX rated. Smut after smut after smut after smut after smut after smut. But I will say there was like an underlying storyline to the story that I really enjoyed, and I almost wish this book was longer so that we could have gotten more development on what's actually going on in the world. But then I realized this is part of a series. So I may be reading the series because the series, I believe, is all on Kindle Unlimited. So keep your eyeballs open for that video because I had such a good time with this book. But pretty much the storyline is, aside from hanging out in the bedroom 24/7, we have a demon hunter who pretty much sells her soul for 7 years to be in the demon realm because her mother went to the demon realm and just never came back. So she's trying to figure out what happened to her mother. And she is auctioned off to marry the Gargoyle King. He is just like this sad little puppy, pretty much. And she's just like this badass demon killer. So yeah, it was a good time. And again, like the underlying storyline was very interesting. So I'm intrigued to see kind of how they all interconnect. Next, we have How to Be Eaten by Maria Adelman. And this book I started last year and finally decided to pick it up again. And ultimately what this book is about is modern day women in a group setting where they pretty much talk about the adversities they faced in life. But here's the catch. They're all based off of classic fairy tales. So we have someone who dealt with Bluebeard. We have Little Red Riding Hood. We have Gretel from Hansel and Gretel. We have a woman who interacted with Rumpelstiltskin. And we have a woman who I'm going to say is just kind of like your classic fairy tale princess, Snow White, Cinderella. She met her Prince Charming on a show pretty much like The Bachelor. And yeah, it was just very interesting to see these women in this like therapy group. I will say my big qualm with this book is how it ended. I was so confused. I didn't like the ending. I really enjoyed kind of learning all their individual stories and how like their stories have impacted their lives. But I didn't like just the ending. I was just like, that's where we're going with this? That's how that's ending? I don't know. I didn't like it. So I would unfortunately have to give this book 3 stars. It was just an all right book. It would have been a 4, maybe even a 5-star if the ending wasn't just so odd. Next, we have Monsters We Have Made by Lindsay Stark. And I always compare this book to Slender Man. So this is about a young girl who discovered the Kingman, who is an urban legend created by humans. And we actually meet the creator of Kingman in this book. And she attempts to kill her babysitter to pacify the Kingman. Actually really delves into the impact that action in her youth has had on her family in present time, and also action she's now taking in present time to protect her daughter. So we really don't spend much time on the actual crime itself. We spend a lot more time in like present time dealing with the domino effect of that incident. We do have a lot of like flashback moments, but those flashback moments are either very short in like a narration style, or they come through newspaper clippings, newscasting, documentaries, articles, court documents. So it's very interesting. I really enjoyed it. I think my biggest qualm though is the entire time I was comparing it to the case in Wisconsin where the girls tried to kill another young girl for Slender Man. So I feel like it almost had too much of a tie to that instance where I was constantly comparing it to that. But I don't think if you didn't have that background knowledge, I think you would really enjoy this book. I would give this 4 stars. Next, we have a quick little novella called Mewing by Chloe Spencer. I actually picked this book up at the Twin Cities Book Festival this year. I actually got to chat with Chloe Spencer. She has, I think, 3 books out, or at least there were 3 books on her table, and I did pick up 2 of them. This one, I don't know, the cover, I'm just obsessed with that cover, and it's pretty much about this girl who's trying to become a social media influencer and is kind of struggling doing it on her own. So she joins this influencer house. Let's just say things get a little wild, a little bizarre. This does deal with horror, and the entire time I was just like, ew, ew, ew. I enjoyed it. If you want a quick little horror novella that deals with the ridiculous life of influencers, I really enjoyed this book. So 10 out of 10 recommend, 4 stars. I feel like I can't just throw 5 stars, but I had such a great time with that. Like high 4 stars. And last, but certainly not least, we have Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay. I listened to this on audiobook, and I bought the book after I finished it because I enjoyed it so much. I would say though, if you are going to consume this media, you have to consume it in the audiobook. It just had a full cast of characters. It had sound effects. I'm sure reading it is fine, but you really get to like get into the book with the audiobook. Like you can't not listen to the audiobook for this. It is so brilliant, so good. I will say though, my one qualm with the book is how it ended. I was left very confused and befuddled. Like I was sitting there going like, oh my God, it's all making sense. All the dots are connecting. I'm totally getting it. And then the ending. Now I'm not saying every book has to wrap up with a pretty little bow and you have to understand everything. But when you're building up when you're like confused kind of throughout the entire book, and then you finally get to the end where you think you know what's happening and then you're left still confused. But I had a really good time. So this also is a 4-star book. So that is everything I read in September and October. I did start 2 more books in October. Haven't finished them yet though, but we have A Mask of Flies by Matthew Lyons. I'm not very far in this book at all, like maybe 20 pages. I'm 12 pages into this book, so 12 pages are good so far. Miss Haley Hughes influenced me to give Fourth Wing a whirl. I've seen so many people talk about Fourth Wing, and I was convinced this would not be a book for me. But just the enthusiasm that Haley had for this book, I was just like, okay, pop off, sis. Let's check it out. And I am having so much fun with this book. I am like 20% of the way into this book. It's such a good time. Tell me what other books are out there that I need to check out. With all of that noted, y'all, I think I've blabbed on enough. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. I will see you next week. I don't know what video we're gonna have next week. We'll figure it out. But enjoy the start to your November. And yeah.